you hear that voice, that raw, unapologetic force that just, well, grabs you, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Unmistakable.
That's Janis Joplin. And today we're doing a deep dive into her life. We're using material from the BBC documentary Southern Discomfort.
It's a great source.
Our mission here is really to get past the legend, the big stage presence. We want to unpack the person behind it.
Right. How did that journey shape the artist?
Exactly. From like conservative Texas to the whole San Francisco scene, how did that create her sound, and how did the pressures affect her?
And the documentary, it really gives us a full picture. It covers her roots in Port Arthur, Texas, her escape to California.
Yeah, the rise to fame.
The rise to fame, and then the intense personal pressures that came with being, well, what they called her, the first lady of rock and roll.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting right at the beginning.
Port Arthur.
Port Arthur, Texas, born there in 1943. And the source describes it as, this really conservative place, all built around the oil industry.
They even mention the smell, don't they?
Yeah, rotten eggs. But the locals apparently called it the smell of money. Weird, right?
Uh-huh. And the big social thing was the cavalcade, some kind of parade?
Something like it, yeah. And her family background, well, on the surface, it seemed pretty standard for the time and place.
Father in a refinery, mother had actually been a singer in high school.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that about her mother. Some accounts even called her early childhood idyllic.
But that didn't last, did it?
No way. When she hits her teens, things really change. The transformation starts. She's dyeing her hair orange.
Orange in Port Arthur.
I know. Dating guys described as local hoodlums, getting into beatnik writers, Ginsberg, Ferlinghetti. The source says she was just becoming more and more curious.
And it wasn't just about books or art, was it? She was seeing the injustice around her.
Totally. The segregated schools, the racism. She called it just horrid and actually spoke out.
Which took incredible guts in that environment.
Oh, absolutely. And the backlash was immediate. Vicious, being called an N-lover.
Awful. It just shows the pressure cooker she was in.
Yeah, the pressure to just fit in, especially for girls. The expectation was so rigid. Get married when you get out of high school and have a brood of children and keep your mouth shut.
And Janis just wasn't having any of it.
Not at all. She dressed differently, men's white shirts, untucked. She struggled with acne, with her weight.
And kids can be so cruel. The source mentions these future fraternity boys targeting her. Awful names like Pig W.
Just brutal.
Yeah.
But her response, apparently just a defiant "F you."
Wow. That early rejection of conformity, that fight back, it feels so core to her, doesn't it?
It really does. And while she's facing all this hostility, she finds something else, something vital.
Music.
Music. Yeah. Crossing into Louisiana with friends, hearing blues, Cajun, Zydeco.
And she found something real there, didn't she? An honesty she wasn't hearing elsewhere. The source quotes her saying blues had something that Peggy Lee was lacking.
Yeah, right. But of course, in Port Arthur, that just made things worse for her reputation.
Made her look like a good girl gone bad, a loose woman, all those labels.
And the rumors.
Yeah.
Like that crazy one about her sleeping with our whole class, when the source suggests she was probably still a virgin.
It's that disconnect, isn't it? Between the image people projected onto her and the reality. You see that again and again.
Absolutely. And all this pushing back, it created so much tension at home.
Oh, yeah. The source mentions a lot of arguments, a lot of yelling, a lot of name-calling.
Her poor parents. They just wanted her to be safe, to be a school teacher or something.
But then, around 17, something clicks.
She starts singing, just exploring her voice.
Yeah.
And she realizes,
I could sing.
yeah, like it was a surprise, even to her. Like finding this power she didn't know she had.
It's really fascinating here, I think, is seeing how that early rebellion wasn't just, random acting out. It was tied to this search for something authentic, something honest that pushed against that conformity.
Yeah, against the grain.
And that seems to be the seed for so much that came later.
And it definitely did follow, didn't it? Right out of Texas. Though it took a couple of tries.
We're a stop, Austin, right? It's University of Texas.
Yep. Studying art, made her first recording there. Friends started to really notice that voice.
And developing that range, too, from a high lilting soprano down to that ballsy bass sound we know.
Incredible. And she found a place. Threadgill's Bar became like a second home.
Singing blues for beer, an outlet.
Exactly. That freedom to express herself. But even on campus, she didn't conform.
No. The source says she was supposedly the first woman to go braless at UT. Is that right?
Huh? Reputedly, yeah. And the hostility continued. That awful, ugliest man on campus vote from the frat boys.
Just heartbreaking. but she wouldn't back down.
Nope. So by 1963, she's 20. She's had enough.
Couldn't stand Texas anymore.
That's the quote. Left looking for freedom in California, where she felt nobody bugs you.
And San Francisco in 63, it was a bit different then, wasn't it? Still kind of the end of the beatnik era.
Right. Kerouac, Ginsberg vibes, folk music was big, and amphetamines were around.
Speed, yeah. She sang at the Coffee Gallery.
And this is where she met JP. Fell in love.
The description of him is interesting. Charismatic but strange. Looked out of place, like a cop.
Yeah, blue suit, short hair, in the middle of all the beatniks. Strange match, maybe?
And tragically, this is where the serious addiction started.
Injecting speed. The source says it initially felt like an orgasm, but it spiraled fast.
Into amphetamine psychosis. Scary stuff.
Became skeletal, thin as a rail, horrible tracks on her arms, looked near death, only 87 pounds.
Just awful, which led to the intervention.
Yeah, friends got together, organized a bus ticket party, basically, to get her home, get her back to Texas.
And it seemed like maybe this time she recognized she'd gone too far.
It seemed so. She went back, got help, even tried to build the conventional life. Got engaged to JP.
Tried to be that good all-American girl for her mom. Sewing, shopping.
Waiting for a ring that apparently never showed up.
Ouch. That must have been crushing.
Yeah, it really highlights what the source points out, that deep loneliness, that constant search for love and acceptance.
But the music, it was still calling to her.
Always. A friend encouraged her. She started singing in Austin again and got that amazing review.
From Jim Lang, right? Calling her a singer with greatness at her fingertips.
What a boost that must have been.
You know, if we connect this back, you see that pattern again, don't you? This intense need for acceptance seems to drive both things, the attempt at conventional life and the pull towards her music.
Two sides of the same coin. Interesting.
Yeah, both ways to find connection, maybe.
But even with that positive review, she was scared, wasn't she?
Terrified. A tremendous fear that singing again meant the drugs would come back too.
Understandable. But California.
The pull was irresistible. By 1964, she's heading back.
And that letter home she wrote. Wow. It really shows the conflict. Mother and Dad, with a great deal of trepidation, I bring the news I'm in San Francisco.
I understand your fears. Must admit I share them. So honest, but imagine getting that letter.
Her mother was apparently furious. Gave her friend who called both barrels.
Yeah. And Janis lands back in San Francisco.
And finds it's a whole different world than the year before.
Totally different. San
Yeah.
Francisco in 64, the beatniks were kind of fading out.
Replaced by younger kids. And a new drug was changing everything.
LSD. The source uses that great analogy, like putting rocket fuel in a lawnmower engine.
Yeah, adding a lot more horsepower to the scene. It just exploded.
It became this place where, you could walk down Haight Street and just get lost in these intense conversations about aliens or the Tibetan Book of the Dead for hours.
Wild times. And that's the environment she stepped back into.
And where she found Big Brother and the holding company?
Right. Former folk guys who'd gone electric needed a singer.
Their sound was already described as having this relentless drive and out-of-body experience.
And Janis, she gave it this kick, that extra gear, or they call it escape velocity.
Perfect description. And the band members, they were instantly impressed, weren't they? Not just by the voice.
No, they said she was incredible, intelligent, quick, really fast and funny.
Great mind, quick apprehension. They saw her intelligence right away.
It sounds like that freedom to create in the SF scene was just what she, and maybe the band, needed.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But that fear of drugs didn't just vanish.
No. Initially, she was really clear. If drugs showed up, she was out.
And there's that story about her finding flatmates injecting mescaline.
Yeah, she went completely ballistic, screaming, throwing them out.
The source calls it that fear attraction thing she had with needles. Complex.
Really complex. But even when she moved in with the band, drugs were still, as the source puts it, on the agenda.
Despite her initial stance, it was just part of the scene by then, I guess.
Yeah. And through all this, she's still writing home, trying to explain her life.
But feeling like her mother just couldn't get it, that letter. Haven't received any word from you yet, but presume we're still speaking.
Oof. That says it all, doesn't it? The disconnect.
And as Big Brother starts getting more popular...
The focus shifts, right? Reviews start honing in on her.
Yeah, focused on the singer rather than the band. Which must have been difficult internally.
And it fed right into that inner conflict she had. That tremendous ego mixed with the lowest self-esteem.
She needed that outside reinforcement. Craved it. buying stacks of papers with positive reviews.
But her personal life, especially with men, was still incredibly turbulent.
The source says her emotions were always at their most extreme where men were concerned, really struggled to believe they liked her.
And when attention felt real, it would blow out of proportion.
That story about Country Joe McDonald standing her up, heartbreaking, coming back with mascara dripping down her face and shaking.
Feeling insulted, rejected, put down. It sounds like she just experienced a lot of pain with the men in her life.
The source also mentions her sexual experimentation starting back in college, her relationship with Peggy Caserta.
Yeah, described as compatible and young and wild and interested in each other. But interestingly,
They didn't see it as a typical lesbian relationship themselves, apparently.
which speaks to her complexity again, doesn't it? Adventurous, but also
Traditionally romantic, still looking for that big bear of a mountain man outside the rock scene.
a total contradiction, in a way. Meanwhile, the media is latching onto her.
Oh, yeah. Fascinated by these bizarre young people, and Janis becomes the face of it.
Queen of the counterculture, the quintessential middle-class misfit.
And she kind of leaned into it, didn't she? Saw herself as a cultural provocateur, challenging norms.
But she didn't quite fit that mold perfectly either.
No. Preferred alcohol to LSD, which was unusual then. And she was driven.
Unfashionably ambitious. The source says she knew what she was doing, while others were lost in a psychedelic fog.
Trying to balance that ambition with the whole love ethic of the scene must have been tricky.
Then comes Monterey Pop, June '67. This was it.
The big platform. She wanted mainstream stardom, didn't she? Like Marilyn Monroe, not just some underground figure.
Definitely. And she played twice. The first set wasn't filmed.
So she insisted on doing it again, and that visual change is so telling.
From the hippie threads to that more polished, almost uptown dress for the cameras, signaling her ambition.
And Monterey worked, her and Jimi Hendrix.
And overnight, stars.
And that success just fueled her drive. Became very ambitious, the start of me instead of we.
Which leads to signing with Albert Grossman, Dylan's manager, Columbia Records.
Nationwide tours, the whole rock and roll life. And more press on her because she was a woman talking differently.
Giving them sound bites. She knew how to do it.
But the pressure mounted, and the heroin use increased.
Started as fun, exploring maybe, but quickly became an escape.
Putting a wall between her and the world, those quotes are chilling. Nothing that feels this good can be all bad.
And then all I want's a little feast pan. You hear the desperation.
Addiction took hold. It was not fun anymore.
And the band.
Yeah.
The cracks were showing. Tensions over the focus on her vocals.
That discussion during the Cheap Thrills recording. Sam Andrew wanting more instrumental focus, the band pushing for her voice.
The album was huge, 1 million copies first month. But the critics?
Raved about Janis, slated the band. Ouch! That just solidified the split.
It fell apart. She announced she was quitting mid-tour.
And that horrible incident with Sam Andrew backstage. The Lassie Show comment.
Comparing her to a dog, it just hit that raw nerve about feeling ugly, led to a physical fight.
Then Grossman steps in, wants quality musicians for her solo career, tells her flat out, we're going to make some changes in your band.
She got what she wanted, in a way. Solo stardom, but the cost.
Huge. The guilt over leaving Big Brother, who felt like family, but she followed Grossman's order, off with their heads.
Rough. So she launches the solo career with the Cosmic Blues Band, a made-to-measure soul band.
But it didn't quite work, did it?
No. The source says, a lot of horns competing with her voice. Sounded too heavy, too overblown.
So disappointment sets in. Fear, did she make the wrong choice?
Felt really insecure on her own without the band structure. A chaotic time.
And predictably, the drinking and drug use ramped up again during that year.
Then comes that Rolling Stone article, March '69,
Hmm.
the infamous one.
Paul Nelson calling her the Judy Garland of rock, criticizing her vulnerability, her openness.
Saying she lacked essential self-protective distancing. She was really hurt by that. It took a long time to recover.
And it's such a double standard, isn't it? As the source points out, Mick Jagger wasn't expected to bare his soul like that.
Her honesty was seen as a flaw, a ruthless and horrible thing to do. It really shows the pressure on women artists then.
Absolutely. The source highlights how much they were expected to give up. Home life, an old man probably, children, friends.
Any stability, basically, except the music itself.
And for Janis, this meant feeling like she had to pour everything out on stage. Give and give and give.
Totally deplete herself to get love back from the audience, to fill the hole inside her.
An ephemeral fix, the source calls it. And that quote, oh man, Made love to 25,000 people on stage, then went home alone.
Just devastatingly lonely. Yet her public image was so powerful.
A symbol of strength. The first female superstar of rock. Wild but real.
And she genuinely had an impact, making it okay for girls who don't look conventionally pretty to still be sexual. That's huge.
But inside, the struggle continued, and she created Pearl, didn't she? That alter ego.
Yeah, like a shield, something to hide behind as the fresher grew.
And then she decides to go back to Port Arthur.
August 1970, the 10th high school reunion, armed with her success with Pearl, trying to lay the past to rest.
But she goes in with an entourage, making this big splash.
Her old friends were apparently like, Janis, stay out of it, and her
Left
parents.
town for the day. Poor Mrs. Joplin, the source says. A very conventional woman watching her daughter acting out all over the place.
The reporters just hammered her about being different. Why wasn't she like them? Did she go to prom?
And her deflections, no comment, ask them, just show she still felt like an outsider, completely apart from them.
The whole thing just backfired terribly,
Her mother saw it on TV, horror, angry, felt it was a disgrace.
leading to that awful confrontation, her mother allegedly saying, I wish you were never born.
Oh, God. That's described as pretty devastating. Unimaginable, really.
Seems like that was the final break, though. Cutting ties with the past, once and for all.
There's that last memory a friend has, seeing her on a plane.
Running up and down the aisle, buying drinks, needing to be the center of attention at all times, sounding very desperate.
So sad. Then, September 70, she moves to LA.
To record the Pearl album. New band, Full Tilt Boogie, staying at the Landmark Hotel.
And the music was clicking this time. Things were working out.
And initially, she was off the drugs, seemed happier, surrounded by people she loved, the band members.
But Patti Caserta was there too, at the same hotel, still using heroin.
And that's the turning point, isn't it? The source describes Janis calling Peggy's room, asking for drugs.
Peggy refused at first, knew Janis was trying to stay clean.
But Janis persisted. I can get it the same way you got it, reminding Peggy she'd introduced her, pleading, let's get high.
And Peggy gave in. Janis started using again, just like that.
October 4th, 1970. A particularly good day in the studio, apparently.
Finished late, around 11 p.m., left with a bandmate, went to Barney's Beanery, got drunk.
Came back to the hotel alone, around 12:30 a.m.
And she overdosed. She'd done it before, but this time.
No one to bring her around. The coroner put the time of death at 1:40 a.m.
The exact details, they're a bit unclear, aren't they? Part of the rock mythology now. Stories about purity, about not being alone.
We know she was last seen by the night porter around 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Body wasn't found for 18 hours.
The reaction from those who knew her, often not shocked, especially after Hendrix died just weeks before.
Blamed on the loneliness, the insecurity. One person said being as lonely as she was, as insecure, I wasn't surprised at all.
Another used that image, like seeing the train coming, but she couldn't see it. Just singing her heart out on the track.
Powerful image. And the source touches on how we tend to read these lives backwards, don't we?
Yeah, hindsight makes everything seem inevitable, but maybe it wasn't. Someone imagined her as an old lady, telling stories, not seeming doomed.
The grief felt by friends is described as selfish, mourning their own loss, but also a sense that she'd completed her journey.
Had done her trip and done it well, gave everything she had to everything she did.
And her legacy. Well, Pearl came out 6 weeks later, straight to #1 for 14 weeks.
But beyond the charts, it's that passionate energy and determination that people remember.
And that final wish, the $1,500 for a party.
The drinks are on Pearl. What a perfectly Janis gesture. Defiant and generous to the end.
This whole story, it really makes you grapple with that question, doesn't it? The price of fame.
That intense connection with the audience, but then the crushing private struggle for acceptance. Such a stark contrast.
So yeah, we've traced this path from the Port Arthur misfit, desperate to belong, to this global icon commanding stages.
A journey just defined by that gap between the powerful public persona and the vulnerable person searching underneath.
And her struggles, her experiences with rejection, that drive, it all fueled the music, no question.
But the source material makes it pretty clear, tragically, that those same forces contributed to the pressures that ultimately consumed her.
So what does Janis Joplin's story make you think about? Identity, authenticity.
Yeah, or the pressure to conform versus being yourself. And that huge difference between looking successful and feeling successful or loved.
Her friend said she gave everything she had to everything she did. When you hear that, and then you hear about her going home alone after giving her all to 25,000 people, What does giving everything truly mean in that context?
Or that paradox. She helped make it okay for unconventional women to feel sexual and powerful, but she couldn't escape her own feelings of being ugly. It's incredibly complex.
Leaves you with a lot to think about, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Her impact, her life,
Mm.
just the sheer intensity of it all.